New York Farm Bureau has a new chief executive officer. Deanna Fox comes to the position with a background that may not be as traditional for the role, but then again, that may be just what is needed as New York agriculture keeps evolving. Hi, I'm Steve Ammerman, Director of Communications for New York Farm Bureau, and welcome to News Bytes. Deanna Fox started at New York Farm Bureau at the beginning of May, and she wasted no time in getting out and meeting with her staff, county Farm Bureau leaders, and members all across the state. She wants to listen to their ideas and better understand their issues. Now, Deanna comes to this job with a varied background, but so much of her background is still grounded in agriculture and the people who produce our food. It's those skills and leadership style that she's bringing to our organization. Deanna, it's awesome to have you not only here today, but on board with our organization. You've been here a month now,
I know.
Which time flies already.
It does.
How has it been, your first month of leading the staff and working with the board and really getting to know not only the organization, but our members?
Sure. So when you go through the interview process, things that come up are usually the pain points, the things you're trying to work through, and the things you're maybe struggling with a little bit. And, trying to get my thoughts on how I would address or change them, but they don't talk as much about how strong we are and the amazing staff and the relationship of the staff. And it's been pretty remarkable to see really all 36 people in this organization come together and work towards a common cause, and to see how well people collaborate and how well thoughts are shared. And just the friendships that people have has been really great. It's always nerve-wracking about where you're going to fit in. And it feels like I've found people that I can relate to here. So it makes the job of addressing the pain points that much easier. So the staff here is really great. And the relationships that so many of our staff have with our members, they really know a lot about our members, and that's been pretty amazing, because with as many members as we have, you could see how a lot of people could get lost in the shuffle. But if you ask a county manager about a specific person, they know a lot about those people. So that's been pretty amazing.
It's wonderful to hear, and I'm not surprised to hear it. You just said a phrase, common cause. What was it about the cause that made you want to be a part of this team and to lead this team?
Yeah. Agriculture has always been very close to me and dear to me. I grew up in a farming community. I have farmers on both sides of my family. Both sets of grandparents worked in farming. My mother's side had a small dairy, and kind of like a classic small family farm situation. Not a lot of money, a whole lot of kids, but not a lot of money. My grandmother would sell a cow each December in order to have money for Christmas, that kind of situation. They didn't have a tractor, or maybe they only had one tractor for a long time, and they had workhorses and ponies. And so that's how they did pretty much all of their field work and their barn work was with horses. But when you have, a dozen plus kids around the farm at any given time, there's always somebody to run a team of horses. So that was pretty fun to witness, to grow up around. On my dad's side, my dad's mother standard bred horses for the harness racing industry. So that was always interesting. We always had some amalgam of horses. My horse was a Morgan quarter horse mix that came from a kill pen, and it was the best horse ever. So that was pretty great. My grandfather, my dad's dad, sold feed and grain. He did farm equipment repair, motor repair. And then my godparents owned a dairy that was part of the family. My godfather and my dad went into the maple industry together. I remember my dad welding the first evaporator pan. I also remember them setting the evaporator pan on fire, the first time that they run it, which was great, because my dad was also the fire chief in town. So that was great. That he'll never be able to live that down. But just having a family, everybody I went to school with farmed on some level, or you lived next to a farm, or your summer job was on a farm. So when I went out to make my way in the world, I don't think that I necessarily thought I'd be working in farming, but I always knew I'd be connected to agriculture. And throughout my career, I've been able to do that. And all of the experiences and the different paths I've taken have really brought me to this point. I feel like I bring a unique and interesting skill set to the position of CEO that's much different than what the CEO has traditionally been for Farm Bureau. And hopefully it'll make the organization stronger.
Yeah, you have so many experiences to pull from, whether it's membership, organizations, public affairs, and obviously communications is your background. So, and the fact that this is personal to you, I think brings that added connection also to this position, and can help you relate to what our members are going through. And I think it's probably fair to say this is personal.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely personal. I mean, even today, I live in a farming community. My land is utilized by the farmer next door. Every day when I look out my window, I mean, just feet from my kitchen window, there are cows. It's a dairy farm. And so besides the family connection that I have to agriculture, in every decision I make in this position, I think about my neighbor and how it might impact him, who's got the old tin sign right at the end of the street. So everybody knows he's a proud Farm Bureau member, which is pretty fantastic. And how does every decision that we make impact what his life will be like, and in turn really mine? Because if I don't have my farm neighbor next door, what does my life look like? So it is personal, but it's also very gratifying.
Absolutely. And I would like to get into maybe some of those issues in a minute, but just kind of piggybacking off of your experience too, as a journalist, a reporter, a writer, at all levels of the game. You've written for major publications and organizations, and really your focus was on food and farming for a lot of that.
It was.
Was there something from that experience that you're able to bring to this job as well?
Yeah, people who are really great writers, I think, as you would know, people who are great in media are, of course, they're good communicators, but more than that, they're really good at listening and hearing what people have to say, and listening to people's experiences and their personal stories, but being able to parse out what it is that they're really trying to tell you. Some people that you might interview are better and more succinct and direct than others, but hearing the joys that they have, the pains that they have, has helped me keep in mind what it is that our members go through every day, and really get to know people on a personal level, because sure, people get into farming as a business choice, but it's usually personally driven. I don't think anybody wants to have a life of a farmer just to get rich. That's not really why you're doing it. So being able to understand them on a personal level, and I think that I really honed in. Of course, I lived that experience, but I was really able to home in on it as a writer and as a journalist focused on those topics.
So as your role here is much more expansive, how would you describe yourself in terms of your leadership style and how you're, I know you're already traveling the state, getting to know people and listening, as you said. I think that's very important. How do you describe your style in working with not only our members, but our staff and our partners throughout the industry?
Yeah. I think I try to be personable. I try to connect with people. I think that's really important, but you can be liked in your job, but that doesn't mean that you're good at your job. And it's important to me to be good. And already in the month I've been here, there's hard decisions that have had to be made, and maybe some reverse decisions on things that were made previously that not everybody will agree with. So you have to have a really steely level of determination. And as much as I feel like I base my leadership decisions in fact, and the information that's in front of me, ultimately you have to trust your gut and know that what you're doing is the right thing. And if it ends up not being the right thing, having the tenacity to move forward, but also the humility to accept that maybe you didn't get it right, and to try again, and to hope that the people that you work with have grace to let you. Yeah.
I think you'll find that at Farm Bureau. People, we'll give you that. Well, as you've been traveling around, is there something that you've learned already, or through a meeting that you've had, or a farm that you visited, anything stand out so far?
Every meeting's been amazing. Everybody has a different approach to the same issue. It all comes down to the same issue, the things that they feel need to happen for Farm Bureau in order to maintain our legacy, but then also grow into a capacity that allows us to really thrive. But last week I was out in the western part of the state. I was just east of Buffalo, just a stone's throw east of Buffalo city limits, and then driving all the way back to Albany. And it's just amazing how the landscape changes. And I was driving back, started the commute at like 5:45, 6 o'clock, so you're in that golden hour where the light just hits everything so perfectly. And it's like, why wouldn't you want to be a farmer in New York when this is what you get to see? It is the most beautiful place. And I've been everywhere, I've worked everywhere, and I can't imagine being anywhere but here. And I have to imagine that our members all feel that way every time they go out and they look at their farms too. And it really is kind of amazing, just the topography, how it changes across the state. It's pretty drastic, actually. So, I mean, we don't have deserts, right? There's no like Arctic tundra here, except for some months of the year. But it really does go from flat to mountainous, and the hills and the rivers and the lakes. It's really pretty impressive.
Yeah, I love on social media when I'll see like our farmers posting pictures of, in a tractor or out in the field, or those sunsets or the early mornings with the sun rising, and that's, I mean, it's not solely why they do it, but it's in a large part of that's their office, and that's, they're out in the elements and doing something great.
Yeah, farming is hard work, but it's like deeply romantic as well. That's why so many Lifetime movies are about like somebody going back to their small farm town and like finding love. It's a perfect setting.
Especially if it's a Christmas tree farm.
That's exactly right. But it really is, farmers are deeply practical.
Yeah.
But I don't think I've ever met one that didn't understand that kind of like the romance of it and the optimism of it. Farmers are so incredibly optimistic, and it's pretty inspiring to work with and for people like that.
Because you hope next year is going to be a better year if you have a rough one, which there's many reasons for farmers to have rough years. And as you look at that and talk to farmers, and as this unfolds over the coming months, as you're setting priorities and looking at changes, are there a few issues that you're hearing about, or things that not so much organizationally, but from a farmer perspective and Farm Bureau perspective that you want to work on?
Sure. Well, internally, for Farm Bureau, I think we are seeing that who farms is changing, who our farmers are and what kind of farming they're doing. We're always going to have dairy farmers, poultry farmers, vegetable growers, grain operations, aquaculture, our brewers, our wineries. There's so much, but who's doing it is different. You do see still generational family farms, but there's a lot more women ownership. Not less of an expectation that your son is going to take over, but maybe it's going to be your daughter, which has been pretty inspiring. The population changes are pretty cool. There's more people who don't necessarily have traditional pathways to agriculture or owning farms, more minorities, more non-binary people of color. It's been pretty cool to see those people take more of an ownership stake in farming, because I think it's reflective of the people that we're actually, producing food for, which has been great. But then externally from there, people not understanding the mission of Farm Bureau. If you're a Farm Bureau member, you get it. But if you're not, and you hear Farm Bureau, the first thing you think is the state, because the term bureau makes you think bureaucracy. Yeah, and to explain to them, of course, we work very closely with the state, and we advocate within the state and at the federal level, but, we're here for you. And that's really what our purpose is, and to maintain strong agricultural ties in New York. Because New York is a really difficult state to do agriculture, to be a farmer in. It's not always the most ag-friendly, and we found that a lot of our, elected officials don't understand what it is that agriculture does. And so policy isn't always written with not even the interests of our farmers in mind, but our ability to produce food and be, I don't want to say a closed loop system, but being able to feed from within, being able to offer nutritious, healthy food from our own amazing farmland.
And I would think with your background in public affairs and communication, you're going to bring new ideas on how to reach some of these people, whether it's potential members or lawmakers or whoever the stakeholder is.
Yeah.
I would assume that's going to be a part of your role.
Yeah. I have, outside perspective, which is great. I'm fresh here. I understand what agriculture is, but I've been able to work with so many different groups of people, so many different types of people that I do bring a different perspective, which I think is what, drew the board to hire me. But our staff also has amazing ideas and maybe haven't always felt like they could share them. So just giving the staff, knowing that I'm, quote unquote, an outsider and bring different perspective, I think that they feel empowered on some level to think a little bit more outside the box and experiment and see how we could grow what we're already doing. Yeah.
We have a strong organization with them, but we also work with a lot of other partners, our Ag Alliance members, other commodity groups. As you mentioned, the State Department of Ag and Markets. How do you see collaboration also flourishing under your leadership?
Yeah. There was recently a Senate Ag Committee meeting that I listened in on. And whenever a bill would come up, they weren't asking about what certain individual commodity groups were doing. It was, well, what's the Farm Bureau think on this? What does the Farm Bureau think? So I think that, we promote ourselves as a general agriculture advocate. And I think that we need to really be the leader across all forms of agriculture in promoting the message, promoting sound, thoughtful policy, and really being a resource for anybody who's touching agriculture. It doesn't matter what it is. If you need somebody to be in your corner, that should be the Farm Bureau. So I think among our Ag Alliance members, we need to promote that message a little bit more stringently and really offer them resources and guidance that, we do on some level, but we could do probably a better job of, and make them feel like we have their backs too. Yeah.
Is there something, like one thing that you're most excited about?
Yeah.
Something that you're, or can't wait to accomplish?
Yeah. I'll be excited when our new website is done. When we go through that process, that'll be great, because I think that is a place where people go to figure out who we are, what we can offer. So I think that could be more user-friendly. I'm really excited with everything that our public policy team is doing, and everybody that, kind of connects with them, because they work very, very hard. Your team works very hard on those issues, and they are not easy. And it changes hour to hour, really, a lot of days, especially, in the time of year when session is wrapping up and everyone's trying to get their bills through. It changes rapidly, and you just have to be on call essentially all the time. But I am really excited about the relaunch of the foundation and finding new ways to inspire, the promotion of agriculture and ag education. And, in my children's own school, they don't have an FFA. They don't have ag education, but there are kids who want it. I just did a career fair there, and I had 3 kids come up out of maybe 150, which is a pretty good metric. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it is. So. Yeah. Come up and really want that in their education as an option. So I think that's inspiring, that these kids don't necessarily have a traditional background in agriculture, but they see that as a job opportunity. And I think that's really where we help shape what the future of Farm Bureau is, because farms are consolidating. There's more automation, meaning less need for people power, but that just offers new opportunities for what you can do with the skills you have to work in agriculture. You could be a technologist, you could be a futurist working in agriculture. Like, there's so many different things that you could do where you could work in agriculture and lend your voice. And I think that through our foundation, we'll be able to really inspire a lot of people into that role.
That is exciting, because people automatically think, well, I got to be a farmer if I'm going to work in agriculture. But I mean, we're both sitting here. We work in agriculture in just very different capacities, and that is exciting. And
isn't it amazing, like, how many people we have on our staff who either currently farm or grew up in farming? Like, I love when I walk into the office and Tom has left eggs on my desk. That's amazing. I love hearing about, Scott needing to, make some arrangements to his day because he has a hay delivery coming in. Like, they know who better to represent our members than people who are actually doing the thing on some level. So I think that's pretty awesome. I love that.
It totally is. And it's Farm Bureau has been around for, New York Farm Bureau has been around for 112 years, the oldest farm bureau, in the country. It's where it started. And agriculture has changed dramatically in that time. Farm Bureau has changed in that time and will continue to change. So, and I think that's part of having you here is figuring out that pathway and how we're going to continue to change and be better and meet the needs of our members, because that's what it comes down to, is the bottom line.
Yeah. And I hope to be here for a long time. So I'm looking forward to being like, back in the day when I started. Remember how different it was? It'll be fantastic. Yeah.
Well, is there anything else that you'd like our members just to know about you, or if they have an idea or, want to have you to their farm,
Yeah, I mean, please invite me. I would love to come. My schedule's, it's tight having to do all the different things the CEO has to do, but I feel so revived whenever I get to go to a farm and just see how somebody is doing agriculture. I think it's, in whatever form. I'm really looking forward to being down on Long Island and, spending time with our aquaculture farmers. And, there's people working, in vertical farming and controlled environment agriculture. And it goes, and even our dairy farms, there's so much amazing innovation happening on dairy farms. One of the oldest forms of agriculture that there is dairy farming. And just being able to roll with it and finding new ways to utilize the world that we're in. It's so inspiring, but I think it's really important for members to know membership goes beyond just advocacy. When we work on bills, whether or not you're a member, you kind of benefit from it. But we can't do that work if you're not a member. Membership does give us money in order to pay people to lobby for those causes that will benefit you, benefit your neighbors, and probably benefit your kids and grandkids. But there's so much more to membership than just writing a check, benefiting hopefully from the policy. It's really a chance to engage with other farmers, to engage on a local and state level, and even on a federal level. It's where you can learn, get resources, help inspire the next generation of farmer. Yeah, we give you discounts on stuff, which is great, and at your county level, you get even more, but it goes so much deeper than that. What it means to be a member of Farm Bureau is something that's 100 plus years old. You get to be part of a 100 plus year legacy, which probably exceeds the timeline of your farm and will maybe be here after, your farm may or not be here anymore. So it's really important for people to feel like their membership matters and that they can reach out. Obviously, you can reach out to your county manager, but, it doesn't just stop there. They filter it up to us, or you can reach out to us directly. And I love getting emails and even phone calls from members just to share an idea or a struggle and help us all remember why we're doing it.
That's so well said. And you're talking about visiting farms. I was thinking, I've never been to a farm where I didn't learn something that I didn't know. But it's also that can be that way for our members. Yeah. You can learn from each other, and having those networking opportunities and discussions, and you're at a county board meeting or at our state convention, you're still going to learn something. Yeah. And that only comes with being a member.
Absolutely. It's, farming is such a collaborative thing as it is, and there's more and more ways to become very insular now, unfortunately, but don't lose the root of what it is, and Farm Bureau helps you do that.
Thank you, Deanna.
Thank you.
It's going to be exciting to watch how things change and evolve under Deanna's leadership in the coming years here at New York Farm Bureau. But despite all of that, as you heard, it's still going to be grounded in the basics of Farm Bureau, and that's advocacy, education, networking, and really learning from each other and working together as a community. Well, we are approaching the summer months. Things are in full swing on farms all across the state. It's exciting to see the planting that's underway. You can head to your local farm stand and see fresh strawberries, fresh asparagus. So make sure you get out there and enjoy the little fruits of the labor of our farmers all across New York. And also keep in mind that this is June Dairy Month. This is an important time to recognize our farmers and how much they contribute to our food system and our greater economy all across the state. It's pretty exciting to know that we have so much innovation here in New York. In fact, you may not understand or realize rather how impressive New York dairy is. We are #1 in the production of cottage cheese, cream cheese, sour cream, and yogurt. And that's really a testament to our farmers, our co-ops, and our processors who are working hard every day to put food on our table. And that innovation also extends to animal care, a lot around nutrient management and how they're improving the sustainability on their farms, as well as how they're improving the workplace for their farm employees. So keep in mind, during June Dairy Month, we want to all raise a glass of milk to our dairy farmers and say we appreciate you and all that you do. Well, that is it for this edition of News Bytes. Thanks so much for listening. I'd like to give a shout out to Seth Moser-Katz for putting this podcast together. And as I said, make sure you think a dairy farmer and really thank all farmers for all that they do for us every day of the year.